Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement?
Yes, I do.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Thank you very much to the committee. I look very much forward to today's conversation and getting into the supplements to the estimates of expenditure for the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning. Before we begin, I would start by thanking the staff that are present today. So from my political staff, we have Rylan Ramnareys, who is my Director of Ministerial Affairs. We have been working together in this portfolio since the first day that I started, and I feel very, very grateful to get to work with him. He does incredibly strong work in the department for our government and for me. So thank you very much, Rylan. And from the department, we have Mona Pandey, our Deputy Minister. We're also joined by our Executive Financial Officer of Finance and Administrative Services, Andrew Henry. We're also joined by our Assistant Deputy Minister of Systems, Performance and Accountability, Jeff Keeler, as well as Sarah Whiteford, our Assistant Deputy Minister of Early Learning and Childcare, and also one of our newest members to the department, not new to the public service, has done lots of good work on behalf of government for quite some time, but new to our department, Paulette Moneta, Executive Director of School Space, the School Space Planning Branch. So to all of them, to Mona and to all of the ADMs, I'm so very grateful for their work. I'm so very humble and honored to work for them. And the work that we get to do for Manitobans, it's the greatest privilege of my life to get to serve Manitobans and to serve with such a strong team and to have their support. I obviously quite literally couldn't do it without them, and I'm very, very grateful to have them here today. All the work that they did in preparing our budget, which is a tough task. You know, we are a government who is strongly committed to investing in education, but we're also a government that is strongly committed to balancing the budget. Very proud of our Minister of Finance, who has just released our budget 2026 with the lowest deficit projection in all of Canada. And so that takes really tough work, especially when you need to balance that fiscal responsibility with the need to play catch up after years of a government, the previous government, a PC government, that starved our education system. For many years, it was not a good news story, education here in Manitoba. It was fights with teachers. It was fights with school divisions. It was cuts to budgets. So we have a lot of ground to make up, but we are grateful for that mandate. We are so grateful to the people of Manitoba to get to do that work. Again, like I said, it is my humblest privilege to be able to serve in this role, to serve Manitoba families, to serve students, teachers, educators, school staff, ECEs, CCAs, all the families that rely so heavily on childcare. It's a particular passion of mine as minister, but also as a mom who has struggled, again, under the previous government. I had 3 kids in childcare. It was a very common vernacular amongst Manitoba families, was that you couldn't find childcare in Manitoba, and even if you could find it, you couldn't pay for it. But thanks to our NDP government, we're making great progress in expanding access to childcare right across our province. And also, once families find that childcare, they can afford it, because it was our government that brought in true $10 a day daycare, making sure that families not only have access to childcare, but that they can afford that childcare once they find it. And also, very importantly, that they can rely on high-quality professionals to deliver that childcare. So there is a lot of great work in our budget this year when it comes to expanding childcare. We've committed in 2026 alone to opening more than 2,000 seats across Manitoba, which is going to serve families, again, right across this province. Again, a lot of ground to make up, a lot more work to do, don't get me wrong. As I've said many times, I will not rest until every single family in Manitoba that wants access to childcare has access to childcare. So there's a lot of work to do. But again, I'm so grateful to work with the department on behalf of Manitobans to make sure that they have that access. And like I said, we're going to make sure that once you have access to that childcare, that there are high-quality professionals. That's why we have increased wages again this year in our budget. Last year, ECEs in Manitoba saw the single largest wage increase in the history of Manitoba, a $5 an hour average wage increase last year in Budget 2025. We're continuing on that good work in Budget 2026 with another roughly $2 an hour increase, meaning that since we've been elected, frontline ECE workers, most of whom are women, many of whom, I think the majority of whom are BIPOC women, many of whom are newcomers to this country, who not only rely on access to childcare, but are also looking for employment and wages that can support their families. So after years of those workers failing to be invested in, their work failing to be recognized, failing to be compensated in a way that it should be, I'm so very proud to serve in a government that has increased the wages of frontline ECE workers by more than $7 an hour in our time in government alone. This is not a 15-cent an hour increase. This is $7 an hour. It is a life-changing increase for some of these ECEs. So we are so grateful to all of our ECEs and CCAs across the province, and we are so proud to finally, show up with some real dollars to compensate them for the very incredible work that they're doing. So that's some of the work that we're doing on childcare. When it comes to investing in education, very proud, again, for the third year in a row, 3 budgets in a row with increases to school funding. A nearly $80 million lift this year, which is about a 3.5% increase, which has now, what that translates into is a record amount of investment here in Manitoba when it comes to education, nearly $2 billion going straight into the classroom. And why do we do that? We do that because we're committed to investing in families and investing in students. So on top of the increase to the operational funding, we're also going to make sure that kids have the space that they need to learn. So Budget 2026 gives a great progress update on the 4 schools that will be opening in 2027. Those are Devonshire Park, Prairie Point, Meadowlands, and a Brandon Southwest school. These projects are on track, and they are not only going to create space for students, but they're also creating jobs for Manitobans and for Manitoba workers. Thanks to the Manitoba Jobs Agreement, these schools are not only going to be built on time, but they're also going to be built on budget in service of Manitobans, and so that we can make sure that we are getting the best value for every single one of those tax dollars that are contributing to these investments in Manitoba education. And in those schools, kids are going to continue to be able to show up to school. No child is going to have to learn on an empty stomach because, again, thanks to the leadership of Nello Altamare and thanks to Nello's Law, we have now in Manitoba a universal school nutrition program, so another $30 million this year invested into our universal school nutrition program to make sure that no child has to learn on an empty stomach. But also importantly, and I've said this recently, about helping kids get to school. You know, we want to improve attendance here in Manitoba. We want to call kids in. We want to make sure that they have not only the spaces and the teachers at school to rely on, but also if their family is struggling, that they're going to be able to show up to school and have a warm breakfast, a snack, a lunch, because every single child matters, and we know that this investment is the single largest step that any government has ever taken to improve attendance here in Manitoba. But it's just one step. It's not a silver bullet. We know that there are many reasons that kids are absent from school. So Budget 2026 makes other investments to help ensure that kids can get to school. One of those investments that we're making this year is a $10 million investment for free transit to make sure that every single child can get to school. We know that it was this year that the City of Winnipeg started fare enforcement on Winnipeg Transit, and we heard immediately from school divisions, from our metro divisions, that this was having an immediate and real impact on their attendance issues in their school. So this is what our government does. We are a listening government. We're a responsive government, and we act immediately. So superintendents, teachers came to us and they said, our kids can't get to school because they can't afford bus fare. Your government is listening. $10 million on free transit, $30 million on school nutrition, 4 new schools. I look forward to sharing more good news about this budget.
We thank the minister for those comments. Does the critic from the official opposition have an opening statement?
Thank you. Yes,
the member for Lac Du Bonnet.
thank you, Madam Chair. So
Actually, everyone is to be referred to as honourable chairperson or honourable minister. So the member for Lac Du Bonnet.
Honourable Chairperson. It's been quite the start already to this year's estimates process, talking about the supplement and the estimates of expenditure budget 26-27, and the minister has already started talking about some of the good things that she has continued to do, that carrying over from the previous PC government. I look forward to getting into some of the conversations about expenditures and some of the promises that this government has made, and I feel that is falling a little bit short of, but also again commending the minister for carrying on a lot of the good work that our PC government was doing. They inherited a nice relationship with the federal government, and as the minister had said multiple times, but of course wasn't giving any credit for where credit is due. Definitely we'll get into some of those finer details in regards to schools, childcare centers, definitely the wage increases as well, and also locations of various different schools and the expenditures. And the minister mentioned transit, which isn't necessarily in education, but to help students and youth get to where they need to get to within the city of Winnipeg, I think is great. And I don't know if the minister had heard, since she seems to be promoting transit this morning, I don't know if she listened this morning where, I don't know if she's advocating for transit to get expanded outside the perimeter, which is still within the city of Winnipeg jurisdiction. She might have some thoughts on that later on, but I'm going to focus on education and making sure that the dark days of the Selinger government, the 17 and a half years, we try not to go back there. It looks like we're sliding a little bit, but hopefully if the current Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning will just stay on the path of the good path that we set up in the PC government, will make sure that the students in Manitoba are excelling once again and not sitting 10th and further behind 9th as they did under the Selinger NDP. So with that, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome my staff that is joining me here today. Levi Cuttingham, he's one of our policy analysts with PC Caucus. He's joining me here today. I want to say thank you and welcome to the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning, the Deputy Minister and the Assistant Deputies and the financial officers, and also the Minister's political staff who's joined us here today. So let's get going on the discussion. It's going to be an interesting couple months.
We thank the member. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department in the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 16.1 bracket A contained in resolution 16.1. At this time, we invite the minister's staff to join us at the table. Had a little technical difficulty there. According to our Rule 77, bracket 15, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put separately on all resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. The member for Lac Du Bonny.
Thank you. We are going to go in a global manner, and so I'd like to start off again the way I sort of finished my opening statement, welcoming the department here, of course, and I know that it takes a lot of work to do the estimates process and also the budgetary dance, I guess, which really in the big picture right now, we're in estimates for 26, 27, and within the next month or so, you're already getting ready for estimates of 27, 28. So I would like to ask the minister if she can share if there has been any other additions to her staff and also political staff.
The Honourable Minister.
Just a point of clarification. So political staff, I understand, but when you say staff, can you limit that? Like, do you mean within the whole department? Do you mean within the senior executive team?
Order. Just a reminder to all folks that questions and answers need to be put through the chair. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I'm just seeking clarity from the opposition critic from the question that they posed through the chair. So if I could just seek some clarity through the chair about just refining the question. I think I understand what he means by political staff. I would just like him to refine what he means by staff, what breadth he would like me to cover.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
Thank you, and to the minister through the chair, the honourable chair. I'm talking about executive staff. I'm not asking for the whole department, but since she brought it up, I can also ask what is the vacancy within the department as well. So primarily executive staff, if there's been any changes, any additions, and then political staff, all political staff that is working with the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. So the vacancy rate of the department currently, based on the numbers that I have in front of me, is at roughly 9.2%. As far as the senior sort of executive staff within the department, as I mentioned in my opening statement, we have recently welcomed our executive director, so not an ADM, but an executive director of School Space Planning Branch. Paulette Monita is a new addition. But other than that, I think it's fair to say that no, there's been no other changes to our senior executive team within the department. And then for my political staff, so Rylan Ramnace is my Director of Ministerial Affairs, who joins us here today. Not with us here today, but also who works as political staff in my office, is Danielle Monroe, who is a special advisor. And I also have an executive assistant by the name of Nicole Dvorak. And just to also mention, so we did introduce some of the ADMs that were able to be here today. There are 3 of our assistant deputy ministers that were not able to join us here today that I would like to mention. Jackie Connell, our assistant deputy minister of Indigenous Excellence and Education, Janet Tomey, our assistant deputy minister of Student Achievement and Inclusion, and Renee Dequier, our assistant deputy minister. Thank goodness Manitoba finally has, again, an assistant deputy minister for the Bureau de l'Éducation française, because our government believes very strongly in French language education and in making Manitoba a truly bilingual province. And I mentioned all 3 of them. They're not able to be here today, and that's because they are right now doing a tour of some of our northern Manitoba school divisions. So yesterday, these members of our senior executive team met with the school division at Mystery Lake. Right now, as we speak, they are meeting with the Kelsey School Division, and later this afternoon, I understand they'll be traveling to the Flin Flon School Division to meet with those amazing school divisions with their leadership teams and to work on the important issues that we're addressing as government. Things like our universal nutrition program, things about improving attendance, things about universal screening and improving literacy outcomes here in Manitoba. About their budgets and the funding increases that they've been seeing, about opportunities to increase childcare in their communities, because we know that school divisions are such excellent partners in our work as government to expand access to childcare. So I just wanted to mention all 3 of them. I know that they would love to be here today. They worked also so very hard on this budget. They worked so very hard on behalf of Manitobans and Manitoba students, and they are doing that great work today up in some of our northern school division partners. So thank you very much.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you to the minister for those answers. I'd like to ask of her political staff, what are their salaries?
The Honourable Minister.
Those are publicly available. Those are publicly recorded documents and are available to the member from Lac du Bonny.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you to the minister, and I'm asking the minister if she can state on the record what their salaries are.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you, and thank you to the committee for your time. Again, we have been, we weren't anticipating this question. I'm somewhat curious about this line of questioning, why the member opposite wants to put on the record. Again, this is publicly available information that all Manitobans can access. This is a completely transparent government, and you can go online. So again, apologies to the committee, but my staff were not anticipating this question. I find it, again, curious and somewhat suspicious that the member wants us to put this on the record. The fact of the matter is, when you're running the most popular government in Canada, you have some of the best staff across Canada, and we are so proud of our staff, and we're also happy to pay them fairly. Our government is committed to paying all workers fairly, fair wages, to support the great work that they do. So before I read onto the public record the exact salaries of my staff, which is, again, very strange and curious, we're here to talk about the budget estimates, we're here to talk about education, we're here to talk about kids, we're here to talk about families, childcare, schools, but the member opposite would like to instead have me read onto the record this salary amounts of my staff, who again are well paid, fairly paid, not exorbitantly paid. They make less than the member opposite, so for the record, I'll let Manitobans know that the member from Lac du Bonny makes $122,000, $122,042.91. That's what his salary is every year, for Manitobans to know. Again, that's something that you can look up. That's how much he makes. To sit here and waste Manitobans' time. That is how much money he makes to come into question period every day and insult me and insult the Premier, attack our character, while our government is focused on Manitobans, focused on improving education, focused on restoring Manitoba's healthcare system after years of cuts. That's what the member opposite makes. So my executive assistant makes $64,021 a year. That is based on the information that we could find online. My special advisor makes $118,339,000 a year. My director of ministerial affairs makes the same amount. Thank you.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I'd like to thank the Minister for putting some words on the record. Again, Manitobans, today you're seeing, again, examples of I don't know what we're seeing today. The Minister is trying to get, again, personal, just asking questions in regards to finances within the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning. I think it's very important that Manitobans are holding this government and this minister to account with some transparency. It's unfortunate that the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning, I'm not sure if she's giving me the extra $10,000 out of her budget, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, I look across the way at some of the members, my colleagues, at other MLAs that are sitting here, they looked a little shocked at the amount that the minister had put on the record that I'm making. Unless we got about a $10,000 raise. I'm not sure what happened there, because I was pretty sure that I was making about $112,000 a year. But the minister has now given me a raise. I'm not sure if the rest of the colleagues are aware of that. I'm not sure if that's coming out of the minister's department or where that money is coming from. But it's good to hear, and I'll pass that along to my members. I'll pass that along to the shocked members of the government side as well, that apparently we're all getting a $10,000 bump from the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning. We are paid fairly. We do a lot of hard work on behalf of the constituents that have elected us, and that's why we're here. And so when the minister puts on the record that that all her staff are paid less than what I am, that's absolutely incorrect. So I'm hoping that's not a path that this minister is going for the rest of the estimates process for the next couple of months that we're going to be sitting here. But it's not a great start. It's not a great look on the minister to put not factual numbers on the record. So we'll move on. So we found out that 2 out of our 3 political staff are getting paid more than me, and I had to put that on the record. I don't know why it took so long, if this is publicly available numbers, why it took so long for the minister to put that on the record. But again, it's very important for Manitobans to know where their tax dollars are going, because the minister, and as we all do as MLAs and civil servants and even political staff, are getting paid by taxpayer dollars, and it's very important for Manitobans to know where those dollars are going. So I appreciate the minister for putting some of the words on the record, not all accurate, obviously, as I pointed out, but we'll continue moving on. So the minister wants to talk about budgets, and I would like to ask the minister if she has been in contact with Manitoba Teacher Society lately. I had asked questions yesterday in question period, and still waiting for an answer from the minister. So I'm hoping today the minister can answer a couple of the questions. So as I mentioned yesterday, so taxpayers, Manitoba School Boards Association, Association for Manitoba Municipalities are all feeling the pressures by this minister's reduced funding to school divisions this year again. That's putting a whole lot of pressure on school divisions to then increase taxes by double digits. I'm wondering if the minister can explain why and when is a new funding model coming out for the various school divisions in our great province of ours.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. In reference to, the Manitoba Teachers Society, who is one of our sector partners, which we value so greatly. We value our partnership, our relationship with the Manitoba Teachers Society. I've been in touch with them very recently, this week, in fact, last week, throughout the month of April. We're also very grateful for all of our sector partners, including the Manitoba Association of School Superintendents, the representatives at MASBO, the representative at MASS, the school superintendents, the Manitoba School, I believe I already said that, the Manitoba School Boards Association. We're very grateful for all of our partners in education because, again, it's not just only up to the department. We rely very heavily on our sector partners, and we're building great relationships, rebuilding trust between government and our education sector partners. And wow, does it take time, After 7.5 years of a government that not only failed to fund education, but actively picked fights with teachers, with trustees, with school administrators. It takes time to rebuild that trust, but we're rebuilding that trust. How do you rebuild that trust? You show up with stable and predictable funding. And that's something that we have done every single year, including this year. As I said in my opening statement, education funding is at a historic level here in Manitoba. Nearly $2 billion, it's never been that high. Why do we make those investments? It's for kids, it's for families. It's because we know that a good education is the key to a successful future. We know that a good education is key to long-term health outcomes. We know that a good education is key to long-term public safety in our communities. For all those reasons, we are proud to have increased education funding in this province every single year that we've been elected, and that every single school division has received an increase. So we do that proudly, and we do that while we're also balancing one of the other mandates that Manitobans gave us, which is to balance the budget. And so we're doing both of those things. We can do hard things. This NDP government can do hard things. The opposition will sit here and tell you that we can't, that we have to cut education funding. That's what they did. They won't only tell you that, that's their record, Honourable Chairperson. So again, $80 million increase this year. The member opposite is putting inaccurate information on the record. School divisions know that every single school division in Manitoba, every single year since the NDP government has been elected, has seen an increase. A 3.5% increase this year, Honourable Chairperson. That is above the rate of inflation. And again, there's not one single school division in this province that has seen a reduction in their budget since we've been elected. $2 billion. That's what we're investing into Manitoba kids. And when it comes to our partners, like the Manitoba School Boards Association, what do they have to say about our record? What do they have to say about the previous government's record? So recently, the president of the Manitoba School Boards Association said that there were outright provincial funding cuts under the previous PC government. My apologies. Outright provincial funding cuts under the previous PC government. That's what the Manitoba School Boards Association president said. When the member for Lac Du Bonnet was minister, he cut school divisions' budgets and he bragged about it. The province will also continue to ensure all school divisions receive no less than 98% of the operating funding they received the year earlier. Those are his words in January of 2020. Bragging about a 98% funding, which is a cut. That's a cut. That's their record. So we're digging ourselves out of a hole that we were left from the previous government. They left us in a hole with our budget, with the deficit, with the debt that we are going to, thank goodness, we have the best finance minister in the country, maybe in history, we heard yesterday. I would second that. So we're going to climb out of the debt that they left us. We do have the lowest deficit projection in the country, and we're going to do that while we invest in our kids.
Before acknowledging the next speaker, I just want to ask everyone in the committee room to refrain from conversations, interjections, laughter. If you have anything to discuss, you feel free to step outside the room or indicate that you'd like to say something on the record by raising your hand. The member for Lac Du Bonnet.
I haven't raised my hand yet.
The member for Lac Du Bonnet.
Honorable Chairperson, I'd like to thank the Minister for putting more words on the record, because it's always great to be able to then go back into Hansard and see how she exactly has portrayed some of the things and some of the rewriting the history here in Manitoba. So since she's quoting from just recently, and just for the Honorable Chairperson, before they ask me the question, this is a public document by Manitoba Teachers Society. Education funding announcement fails students again. That's from one of those education partners. The minister doesn't call the Manitoba Teachers Society one of the education partners. She calls them a stakeholder. I'll have to look back and answer exactly what they spoke about, but we're all working here in this great province of ours to build a strong education system. And thanks to our government, the Progressive Conservative government, we actually had amalgamated the early childhood education with the K-12 sector, which I think was a great move, and I have to give credit to our Premier Heather Stefanson for having that vision and to do that. I know that also not only the department, but the sector, our childcare education partners felt that was a very important, long time overdue move as well, because as we know, early childhood educators, and it says right in their title, they're educators, they're teachers, and trying to make sure that there's a seamless transition from childcare centers to the K-12 system. I think is very important. So, as the minister had mentioned, I'm looking at the operating costs from budget 25-26 to 26-27, and we see a reduction of $3.1 million. So in 25-26, there was a $53.1 million invested into operating costs for school divisions, and this year they're seeing a $51 million reduction. School divisions are now, as the minister quoted Mr. Alan Campbell from the Manitoba School Boards Association, they're having to go to their members, and they are seeing double-digit increases from school divisions, school boards, putting it on the backs of taxpayers yet again. I want to remind the minister there is only one taxpayer, no matter if they're municipal, school division, or provincial, or even federal. And so due to the shortfalls by this government funding education, school boards are having to go and do double-digit increases, and they've had to do that to exorbitant amounts over the last couple of years since this minister has definitely taken over the education and early childhood learning department. So I would like the minister to explain why there's been a $3.1 million reduction.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. And again, the truth of the matter is Manitobans know who they can trust in education. Manitobans see in the classroom every day what they get from an NDP government, and that's more teachers, more educational assistants, more clinicians, more new schools, more food, more free transit. That is what the reality of schools, classrooms today is under this NDP government. Again, much accomplished, much more work to do. We were left in a huge hole, a sinkhole, you could call it. Not just in education, healthcare, justice, we can go down the list of the services that were cut and the services that our government is so grateful, thanks to Manitobans that gave us this mandate to restore. Manitobans understand the value of investing in education. That's why they elected an NDP government, and that's exactly what we've done every single year. That's the truth. This year, 3.5% increase above the rate of inflation. Last year, 3% increase above the rate of inflation. This is the truth. This is the truth. It's also true that under the previous government, school division budgets were cut. School divisions, you're right, we're playing catch up. School divisions need to hire teachers. They need to build schools. They need to hire EAs after 7.5 years of teachers and EAs leaving the profession, losing their jobs because of budget cuts, leaving the profession because they did not get respected. And it's our government that was elected by teachers, by families, for teachers and for families. So we are going to continue making those investments, and we're going to continue cleaning up the mess that the previous government left us in. So let's talk a little bit about the truth. The truth of the matter is that while every single school division across Manitoba, every single year since the NDP has elected has an increased budget, every single one. There's not one school division that's received a cut. What is their record? Let's look at 2020 and 2021. That was under the PC government. Borderland School Division, 2% cut. Evergreen School Division, 2% cut. Fort LaBosse, 2% cut. Interlake, 2% cut. Lakeshore, 2% cut. Park West, 2% cut. Pine Creek, 2% cut. Portage La Prairie, 3.5% cut. In a region of our province that is growing, a 3.5% cut. Prairie Spirit, 2% cut. Red River Valley, 2% cut. Rolling River School Division, 2% cut. Southwest Horizon, 2% cut. St. James Assiniboia, 2.2% cut. Swan Valley, 2% cut. Turtle Mountain, 2% cut. Turtle River, 3.3% cut. That's just 2020 and 20. That's not even the whole list. I could go on, Honourable Chair. That's just 2020, 2021. Those are the school divisions. And what are the impact of those cuts? There are real impacts to those cuts. We saw schools having to cut teacher positions. We saw schools like the Winnipeg School Division. The Winnipeg School Division is on the record, on the public record, saying that because of the cuts under the previous failed PC government, they had to cut their school resource officer program, a program that was designed to keep students safe. Winnipeg School Division, on the record, they had to cut that program because of the Tories' budget cuts. There are real impacts. There are real impacts because of these cuts. These impact teachers, these impact students, these impact families. So that was 2021. It was no different in 2019 and 2020. What did they do that school year? Borderland School Division, 2% cut. Fort LaBosse, 2% cut. These are in the members' own constituencies, cuts. Kelsey School Division, 2.9. Where our team is today, repairing the damage of these 2.9% cuts. Mystery Lake in Thompson, where we see students struggling, 3.2% cut. Shameful. Again, Swan Valley, yet another year. The member for Swan Valley should ask the member that he sits beside. He was in charge at the time. They both sat at the cabinet table. They're both responsible. I hope their constituents ask them. Very shortly, we're going to be, this house is going to rise. Well, we'll see. We'll see if the members, what they want to do, if they're going to support our budget, if they're going to support cheap groceries for Manitobans. But if they do and we can pass the budget, we're going to be out on the doorstep soon, and they're going to have to answer their constituents about these cuts. We're here working for Manitobans. And we're going to continue to do that.
Before recognizing the next member, just a general reminder that we can't comment on someone's presence or absence, and all comments and questions should be put through the chair, please.
Thank you.
The member for Lac Des Moines.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I appreciate the advice by the Honourable Chairperson directed in a global manner, but we know who is basically being directed to. So the Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister, unfortunately, is not really wanting to answer the questions. The Education Minister wants to talk about other portfolios, of course, trying to distract from some of the things that I'd like to talk about as the advocate for education and early childhood learning on behalf of not only my constituents, but of Manitobans. The minister decided to talk about various different school divisions back to the 2019, 2021. I mean, if we really wanted to play the history game, I mean, I'm a teacher by profession. You know, if she wants to go back to the days of So the MLA for Kuwait, it sounds like he has some things he'd like to put on the record, Honourable Chairperson. So,
Okay.
you know what,
Order.
in a little bit.
We got a little out of hand here. We don't need interjections from anyone that has not been recognized as the current speaker, and we don't need any commentary between other members in the room. So the member for Lac Des Moines has the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. So my question was, so operating grants to school divisions went from $53.1 million last year to $51 million this year. And so we're looking at a reduction. And so the good thing is whilst the education minister is talking about every other department except for her own, I had recalled the question that I asked 2 questions previous and didn't get an answer. So knowing that school divisions are having to go to double-digit property tax increases, not only last year, but this year, because of the funding reductions by this education minister, by the Canoe government, I'm asking the minister, or I had asked the minister, and she dodged the question, when is she coming forward with a fair funding model for all school divisions across this great province of ours, north, east, south, and west? Can the minister please answer that question?
The Honourable Minister.
So the member from Lac Des Moines is incorrect. Our education funding is increasing. The Manitoba Teachers Society knows this. The Manitoba School Boards Association knows this. The Manitoba Association of School Superintendents knows this. Children in classrooms today know this. Families know this. So the member should check his math. We are building on increased investments while year after year they cut. And then in their last year, in a desperate attempt to try to trick Manitobans into thinking they actually do care about education. And the last year before they lost the vote, they tried to send a few dollars into the classrooms. Manitobans are smarter than that. Manitobans saw right through that. Manitobans know that year after year after year they cut. Not only did they cut, they threatened the whole education system. Teachers didn't know if they had jobs to come back to. School trustees didn't know if they were going to exist anymore. It was going to be a power grab. The member opposite in a previous question used the word amalgamation. I'm surprised that he would dare to say that word on the record. I guess maybe he wants to revive Bill 64. Manitobans should remember Bill 64, the worst bill in the history of Manitoba, I like to call it. That's what Manitobans called it. They had a majority government. They couldn't even pass it. That's how bad the bill was. Manitobans understand that they cannot trust the previous government when it comes to education. They cannot trust the member from Lac Des Moines to put factual information on the record here today. Manitobans know that we have increased funding. Manitobans know that we're going to continue to do that. And our funding model is called increased. That's our new funding model. That's new from the previous government. Our funding model is called increased budgets. It's called more money for teachers. More than 800 teachers have been hired into schools since we've been elected. Where's the evidence of the budget cuts? $30 million a year on school nutrition. Every single child has access to food in a school. Show me the cuts. Show me the cuts. The member opposite wants to come here and distract. He wants Manitobans to forget their record. Manitobans know who they can trust in education, and it's the NDP. We are going to continue to show up with stable and predictable funding. That's our funding model. And make no mistake, the funding model needs work. We have done work on the funding model so far. We have introduced incremental changes, something the member in his time as education minister failed to do. He stands here today like they do on many issues. They come into this room and they talk about the economy, or they talk about healthcare, they talk about education as if they weren't voted out of office because they failed so resoundingly on all of those files. So our funding model is stable, predictable funding. We're going to continue to work with our school division partners to adjust our funding model. We know for certain that when we're talking about supporting students with additional needs, that is something that needs to be talked about. That's something we're talking about in the department every single day. That's something we're talking about with teachers. We hear the Manitoba Teacher Society when they talk about the complexity of classrooms. We know that the funding model that the previous government used, that they failed to change, no longer adequately is not designed to support the level of need that we're seeing in school today. So we are going to continue to work with the Manitoba Teacher Society. We're going to continue to work with MASBO, MASS, and the School Boards Association. We're going to continue to work with families. We're going to continue to work with folks like Autism Manitoba, the Kids Brain Health Network, and elders and knowledge keepers, and we're going to make sure that our funding model adequately supports every single student in this province, because every child matters. And I take that task extremely seriously. I don't take this role lightly. I take it very seriously, which is why, and so does our government, our whole team, and our premier takes nothing more seriously than kids. The first thing we did when we got elected was reinstate the Healthy Child Committee of Cabinet, something the previous government annihilated. They repealed legislation and dismantled something called the Healthy Child Committee of Cabinet. I hope Manitobans think about that. I hope they remember that. We remembered it. We remembered it so much that it was one of the first things we did. And what that Committee of Cabinet does is we work across government. It's not just up to the Minister of Education. It's not just up to the Minister of Families or the Minister of Health. We have a lot of work to do across government to make sure that more kids see their 18th birthday, to make sure that more kids graduate grade 12 so that they can have the bright, successful future that we know a Manitoba education provides. Again, we have a hole that we are digging ourselves out of, a hole that the member opposite left us in. We're honored to do this work on behalf of Manitobans, and we're going to continue doing it every single day. My eyes twitching.
The member for Lac Du Bonny.
So the minister continues to put not so factual information on the record. Those were her words. I asked for some clarification. Apparently we can say that. So we'll continue on a line of questioning. My question was when is she going to, or in the department going to come forward with the fair funding model? Does she have any kind of inkling into a timeline? The model and the conversations we were having with education partners across the sector. I think that the new funding model, fair funding model for all school divisions, whether they were urban or rural or northern rural, northern urban, was probably going to be in place for the 24-25 school year, maybe at worst 25-26 school year, and we've heard nothing but crickets and and not so factual information by this minister put on the record again today. So I'm asking, when is her potential timeline for that fair funding model? The minister also talks about various different education partners, and so have I. This minister will go down in history as the minister to lose one of those education partners, and that's the Manitoba Parent Advisory Council Association here in Manitoba. And unfortunately, under her watch, that organization has folded, or I don't know, maybe the education minister can comment on how and when that association is going to get back up and running. But just to also add to the record, since 2023, the current finance minister, who is celebrating, and this education minister continues to celebrate the fact that they have running yet another deficit in the country of Canada, even though has received the second most transfer funds from the federal government. You would think that this NDP government, the Canoe government, would be flush with cash and would be rolling in on a positive balance sheet, much like the one that we had left them with $375 million to the good when they took over. So I'm just reading, in the last few years, Louis Riel School Division had to increase their taxes by 43%. Pembina Trails, 37%. River East Transcona, 36%. And Seine River, 24%. 37.7% in Seven Oaks, 26% in St. James Assiniboia, and 29% in Winnipeg School Division. So I'm not going to take any lessons from the current education minister. I just wish that the education minister would answer some of the questions, stop talking about other departments. Let's focus on education and early childhood learning, and let's get back on track on some of this. The education minister continues to heckle me from her seat. She runs the clock all the time anyways. So I just wanted to put some of those facts on the record, and also that if she is so proud of her record, then why is Louis Riel School Division talking about, since this budget had come out, that their financial position has eroded, end quote, under this Canoe government, under this education minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much. There was a lot of stuff in there, so lots of stuff to unpack. But again, I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to serve in this role, to serve Manitobans, and to share some of the great news that's in our budget with Manitobans related to the meandering question that we just got from the member opposite. So there was some reference at the beginning. He started talking about the parent advisory councils. So I just want to say shame on him. He put the blame at my feet that the Manitoba Parent Advisory Council Committee has dissolved. They haven't dissolved, actually. They just don't have enough volunteers. As we know, parent advisory committees are volunteer-based organizations. These are unpaid positions. These are often parents and caregivers in the community that volunteer their time in their local school and their local school community to serve their local school. If they have more time on their hands from doing that, they then, if they are so willing to become elected to what is in legislation, a sort of advisory council to represent parent advisory committees. So unfortunately, we don't have any volunteers. But I would never. I want to thank. What I would do, instead of sort of blaming parent volunteers for not having the time to step up, what I would do is thank every single parent and caregiver out there. It's not just parents. We know there's all sorts of people that serve on PACs. I want to thank every single one of them for the great work that they do for supporting their schools, supporting their school communities, and supporting their students. And one of the things that we have in Budget 2026 to directly support our parent advisory committees is our Healthy Kids, Healthy Communities Play Structure Fund. So, under the previous government, when a new school was built, guess what would happen? Playground, empty. Dust, dirt. That was the regime under the previous government. They might build you a school, maybe if they could. They might build you a school, Probably wouldn't be on time. It was definitely way over budget. I don't know if Manitobans know this, but the cost per student of building new schools under the previous PC government skyrocketed to the highest in the country. That's a fact. That's one of the reasons our Minister of Public Service Delivery has brought back in the design and delivery of capital programs into government so that we can deliver schools built by Manitobans, for Manitobans, on time and on budget. But in the past, so again, a new school was built, previous government, they'd leave you without a play structure. Or in some of our schools, I have some of these in my own community, the play structure gets old, needs to be replaced. Who does that fundraising, what is that major capital project, who does that land to? Parent advisory committees. And maybe in one time, maybe that might have been appropriate. Maybe when you just had to buy a swing set and a slide, maybe a few $100s, maybe the community could come together and find that money. But that's not the reality we're living in today. Play structures, for some good reasons and maybe some that aren't, play structures are incredibly expensive. Many of the play structure projects that I see come in at around the $500,000 mark, $500,000, some of these. This is a major capital project that not only requires major investment, $500,000 that is intended, so this is left to parent volunteers to hold donut fundraisers and hot dog lunches to try to raise $500,000. This is a burden that has been left on parent advisory committees for too long. And so what our government is doing, alongside our partners in municipal governments, alongside our school division partners, and with the support of our government, with a $3 million Healthy Kids, Healthy Communities Play Structure Fund, we are supporting those projects to ease the burden off of parent advisory committees. So those applications are open right now, and we very much look forward to receiving those applications and helping those parent advisory committees so that they can do the good work of, getting books into the libraries and, supporting field trips and the other great work that they do, but they should not be in charge of funding $500,000 projects. The member brought up Louis Riel School Division. Man, I wish I had some more time to talk about the great work. He mentioned many school divisions, but he did start off with Louis Riel School Division. They are doing some incredible work with the increased investments that they're getting from the province and with the great work of their Board of Trustees. I really hope that I have some more time today to highlight some of the great work that's happening in Louis Riel School Division.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. So, as the Minister tried to put on the record yet again, spinning some kind of words, basically, I'm totally putting the full blame on the collapse of the Manitoba Parent Councils, totally on her. It was a 70-year organization, absolutely supported by great volunteers, parents, guardians, and as the Minister mentioned, didn't necessarily have to be a parent or guardian, just a hardworking volunteer all across this great province of ours, and it is under her watch that parent council has now pulled the plug after 70 years. A couple other things I wanted to quickly mention. Again, the Minister's dodging the question on the fair funding model. The timeline on that, maybe I should just keep it there and then allow her to answer, because then she just goes off on a bit of a diatribe all over the place. I think I'd like to ask her, I guess, school divisions had found out what their budget is this year. School divisions are having to do double-digit property tax increases this year. The City of Winnipeg has just rolled out their property tax bills with a supplement within their tax bills explaining that the school divisions are having to increase property owners' taxes by considerable amounts due to the funding cuts by this education minister. And so the minister patted herself on the back for last year's funding announcement and this year. I'd like to ask the minister, are school divisions going to receive another Christmas present like they received this year, a lump of coal, just before Christmas, of a clawback of $10 million. So that would actually take last year's funding down by a whole $10 million. And that went out to school divisions shortly before Christmas. So I'm asking the minister, should school divisions prepare for another clawback for this coming December?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Since the member from Lac Du Bonnet again referenced the Manitoba Association of Parent Councils and has blamed me for the fact that volunteers didn't step up, I think he should actually, I'd like to remind him of the impact of his government. He sat at the cabinet table in 2019 when the PCs repealed the requirement that the minister meet annually with the Manitoba Association of Parent Councils. That was repealed back in 2019. So maybe when he was minister, if he had spent his time meeting with the council, encouraging them, organizing with them, showing them some appreciation like we're trying to do here today on the record, thanking them, making them feel valued, making them know that they have a voice at the table, making them know that they have a minister's office that they can knock on, maybe we wouldn't be in this position today. So I thank my political staff for reminding me of this important fact. It's something that I think we'll reflect on after today when we go back over our lunch. I think maybe we're going to think about, because by the way, I just want to assure Manitobans that the statutory authority for the Manitoba Association for Parent Council still exists. We have not repealed it. We would be happy to have a Manitoba Association of Parent Councils again. So if I can speak to parents, if you have the time, I know that life is busy, but I'd be more than happy to get some emails, some phone calls, and I would be happy to meet with the Manitoba Association of Parent Councils annually, quarterly, monthly. So I just wanted to put that on the record as a reminder. And then again, the member from Lac Du Bonnet was the Minister of Education. So he's trying to confuse Manitobans here today, unfortunately. This is what you got from the previous PCs. Secrecy, deflection, you cannot trust a word that they say. He knows very well that this $10 million that he speaks of is a standard annual reallocation. There was never a claw back, not $1 was ever paid back from any school division in this province to the province of Manitoba. There has not been a claw back under this government. So that is false information. He's misleading Manitobans. Again, Manitobans, I mean, geez, I hope that they're watching. This is what they got from the member opposite. He spoke about taxes, so I will remind him, you know, provincially, I represent the community of Rossmere, but federally, I live in the constituency of Elmwood-Transcona, and unfortunately for the time being, I'm represented by a Conservative member. The member for Parliament in Elmwood-Transcona represents the Conservative Party of Canada, colleagues to the member from Lac Du Bonnet, and he recently sent out a tax guide that I got in the mail exalting the new homeowners affordability tax credit. For the 2025 tax year, the old education property tax credit has been replaced. Now, if you own a principal residence, you can now get a credit of up to $1,500 to offset your school taxes. That was again for the 2025 tax year. We know that thanks to our Minister of Finance, we've increased that to $1,600 for 2026 and now $1,700 for 2027. We know that Manitobans, the majority of Manitobans, are better off under the homeowners affordability tax credit. We designed it that way. That's what you get from the Manitoba NDP. We were elected by Manitobans to put help to Manitobans that need it most. Under the PC's tax credit, guess who got one of the biggest tax credits in the province? Brian Pallister. That's who benefits when the PCs are in power. Brian Pallister, the Philmans, that's who benefits when the PCs, they are elected for their friends. We're elected for Manitobans, by Manitobans. We reflect what Manitobans value. That's our record, Honourable Speaker. So I urge the member from Lac du Bonny to give a call to the member of Parliament for Elmwood Transcona. They can talk. He can maybe educate the member for Lac du Bonny about the value of the homeowners affordability tax credit that he is sharing so widely across our province. That's not the only tax benefit, by the way, that Colin Reynolds mentions. Not the only Manitoba tax benefit that he mentions. There's many others, but I know the member from Lac du Bonny wants us to stay focused on education, so we'll do that. But again, I hope Manitobans are watching when he talks about, he's trying to, what the PCs want to talk about with education is property taxes. What the Manitoba NDP are talking about is investing in kids and families.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
So once again, Manitobans, you're seeing this loud and clear here today. The minister, instead of answering questions that pertain specifically to education, your tax dollars, and benefiting Manitoba students in our school system, she continues to do personal attacks, and where she goes low, will go high, and will continue to ask questions on behalf of Manitobans as the advocate for education and early childhood learning. So we know that in the last few years, truancy at schools has is going in the wrong direction. Despite the food and nutrition addition to schools, which is a great initiative, and I'm glad that the minister, her predecessor technically, not this minister, had been able to carry on the good work of our PC government and that great relationship we had with the federal government to bring forward a food and nutrition program for the province. It just so happened that my friend Nello was able to announce it when he became education minister.
That is really disgusting and shameful that you're taking credit. Like, I can't sit here and let you do that. That's gross. And then, sorry, Chair, you can call me to order, but it's disgusting that you would take credit for Devil's work. Disgusting.
So I was actually applauding, despite of what the education minister is now.
Order.
She's got.
I apologize.
We touched a sensitive topic there, but I will just respectfully ask all members to only speak when it's your turn for the floor.
Thank you, sorry.
And a caution to the member for Lac du Bonny to perhaps not. Member for Lac du Bonny has the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, for that advice yet again. But I was commending my friend and my predecessor, or my successor, I guess, as Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister on bringing forward the food and nutrition amounts of money to school divisions within the province of Manitoba. But as we see that absenteeism has increased under this education minister, and I'm just asking, I mean, we had launched a student absenteeism program which was titled School Keep Going, and we were giving some money to school divisions to align their policies in regards to trying to encourage students to come, make sure that they're coming back to school. It seems like the NDP Canoe government has dropped the ball on that, and truancy continues to increase, unfortunately. I think the addition for the free public transit, you know, time's going to tell whether that helps with this or not. I can definitely see it helping somewhat. I'm not sure what advocates are saying in regards to, you know, whether that's going to make a huge difference or not. I know that we worked quite closely with Kent Duick, Sel Burrows, on trying to curb that absenteeism, also trying to make sure that working across government, the education minister mentioned earlier about certain cabinet committees. I had the pleasure of co-chairing the Poverty Reduction Committee of Cabinet with my good friend and colleague Rochelle Squires, and we had done a lot of work on poverty reduction and trying to get students back to school who are maybe slipping through the cracks, working with stakeholders and friends within the communities, as I said, Kent Duick and Sellburrows and many, many others. So I commend everyone for working on that. I'd just like to know why the minister felt that it was time to then re-announce another program, and why she didn't just continue on with the School Keep Going campaign and program that we had launched.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. To, I guess, directly respond to the question posed at the end by the member, certainly our department, our government, there has been no pause of any sort of, initiatives that have been going on to help address improving attendance here in Manitoba. But I will say that, billboards, no one went to school because a billboard went up. With all due respect, School Keep Going billboards, that was the previous government's absenteeism plan, as far as I can tell. It was billboards that said school keep going. Again, I don't know. I'm not sure how that spoke to kids, I don't think it did. I don't think it was effective. So that's not how we're going to choose to spend our dollars, is putting up billboards. How we choose to spend our dollars is by instituting a universal school nutrition program. I had the great honor and privilege of speaking just 2 weeks ago, I think, at the Winnipeg School Division's Absenteeism Summit. And it was a wonderful day with all sorts of excellent advocates there, community groups, educators, school leaders that are working so hard on the issue of getting kids into school. And if I had one criticism of the day, and something that I'll offer to the committee here is, and the member at the beginning of his question used the word truancy. I don't like that word. That harkens back to, I think, the wrong approach. What the Manitoba NDP are not going to do is send truancy officers to your door to arrest you or arrest your family. That's not our plan. So I don't want to talk about truancy. I also don't really want to talk about absenteeism. I think words matter. I'm someone who really believes words matter. And so what you're going to hear me talk about as the minister is attendance. I want to improve attendance. I want to bring kids in. I want kids to come to school. I want them to attend. So it doesn't surprise me. And again, we can use the word absenteeism. I'm not saying that it's a bad word. It's not a dirty word. It certainly describes an issue. But something I believe is that words matter. And I want to talk about improving attendance. So that's what you're going to hear me talking about. So at the Absenteeism Summit, which was again appropriately named, I would have liked to hear it be called the Improving Attendance Summit, but I'll talk to Superintendent Matt Henderson about that next time. But again, there were excellent advocates there, including Sellburrows, who I've had the benefit of meeting with. My department meets with quite regularly. I also I believe it was last week, met with Kent Duick from Inner City Youth Alive. We are very grateful to Kent for the incredible work that him and his organization at Inner City Youth Alive are doing to do real community outreach. These are the kind of things. That's what gets kids to school. Community outreach, supporting families, feeding kids. I said at the Absenteeism Summit, I said, thank you to everyone there for the work that they're doing. And I wanted to remind them that if there was ever a time to improve attendance in Manitoba, it's now. We know that people in the education sector, people in community, have been working on this issue for decades. For decades. In fact, my mom just told me a story. Both my parents are educators. My mom just told me a story the other day about what she believes to be the very first breakfast program at any school ever was at John M. King in 1972, I think she said. Gosh, I wish she had. I've asked my mom to write the story down. I'm going to share this with the House at some point and talk about the leaders there. But again, it was under the leadership of Nello Altamare that a universal nutrition program was brought into here to Manitoba. And what I said at the Absenteeism Summit, and I said it twice, and I'll say it here again today, and I'm going to say it forever. There's no government ever that has taken a bigger step towards improving attendance in Manitoba than the universal nutrition program under the leadership of the late Nello Altamare. So I reminded the folks at the Absenteeism Summit who have been doing this work for years in community, these are the real heroes and champions, the province is not going to fix this. The government's not going to fix this. We have to work together. But people in community have to know that if we're ever going to address this problem, it's now. You have a government that has shown up with a $30 million a year annual investment in school nutrition, $3 million a year on small class sizes. What did the member opposite do during his time? Repealed small class time legislation. Made class sizes balloon in Manitoba. How are kids going to come to school when they don't get one-on-one time with their teachers, when they don't get one-on-one time with their EAs? That's their record. This year, on top of our $30 million universal nutrition investment, $10 million free transit for youth so that not only can kids get fed when they get to school, but they can get there for free.
Member's time has expired.
I can talk absenteeism.
The member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and the Education Minister said that she can talk about absenteeism all day. You probably heard that on the mics, but that's okay. That's good. That's good. We have many topics to talk about. I set the stage to talk about the program that we had set up, School Keep Going. Was there billboards involved? Absolutely. Sure there was, to try to promote and working with not only school divisions, but Association for Manitoba Parent Councils as well, which I had met with multiple times, even though her political staff can actually speak to the department and talk about that if they want, as that's something that the minister put on the record a little bit earlier. We know that the food and nutrition, universal food and nutrition program, the Canoe government spent over $94,000 promoting the food and nutrition program, which is more money than a lot of school divisions received. So at this time, Honourable Chairperson, I am conceding the floor for, we'll reconvene at half an hour, but I'm conceding the floor to questions to the independent member from Fort Garry who has some questions. And since the minister wants to talk about absenteeism and attendance, improving attendance, I think she's going to get that opportunity. So thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I look forward to the minister explaining why, in my question, over $94,000 was spent to promote the Universal Child Nutrition Program, which is more money than some school divisions actually received in the program. And then we'll turn it over to the member for Fort Garry for a half an hour.
So since we've already established that questions and answers proceed in a global manner, when the minister is ready, the minister will have the opportunity to respond to the member for Lac du Bonny. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and I'm grateful to have an opportunity again to speak to the Universal Nutrition Program, which again I will say with my full chest is the single largest thing any government in the history of Manitoba has ever done to improve attendance here in Manitoba. It's not a silver bullet, it's not a panacea. There are many, many other programs and initiatives that need to come from government, that need to come from community, that need to come from school divisions, that need to come from families. Like I said, something we talked about at the Absenteeism Summit at the Winnipeg School Division, and by the way, thank you to the superintendent and all of the leadership and the board and all of the educators at the Winnipeg School Division for holding that summit. Fantastic. We're so grateful. Again, this is not an issue that our government is shying away from. I know that the member thinks he's pulling some sort of fast one on me here, ceding the floor. It's not conceding. He'll be ceding the floor to the member for Fort Garry. He thinks it's some sort of gotcha moment. I'm more than happy to talk about attendance because I think it's something that's super important. This is why I was elected, to leave Manitoba in a better place than when we inherited it. And we're doing that work, a lot more work to do. But we are doing that work. So I'm super excited to talk about absenteeism. But what we talked about at the Absenteeism Summit, that there is no silver bullet. And it's not just a school problem. Absenteeism is not just an education problem. We are doing work across government. It's not just the Universal School Nutrition Program, and it's not just free transit. It's the work of the Minister of Families, Minister Nahanni Fontaine, who's decolonizing our child welfare system. Oh, I apologize.
Order. Just a general reminder that we need to refer to everyone by their ministerial title or their constituency name. The Honourable Minister.
My apologies. Thank you for that guidance, Honourable Chair. This is work that's happening across government. It's work that's happening in the Minister of Families Department, in the incredible, historic work that she is doing, leading the decolonization of our child welfare system, promoting kinship care. These are things, this is how we keep families together. This is the work of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness. After the previous government sold off social and affordable housing, after the previous government just literally threw people experiencing homelessness out to the wolves, to use a crass term. No plan, no compassion. Our Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness is housing hundreds of people experiencing homelessness and investing in social and deeply affordable housing across our province so that, again, families have a place to live and some stability. These are the kind of things that help kids get to school. There are a myriad of reasons. There's 100, maybe 1 million reasons. Every kid is different, every community is different, every school division is different. There are different reasons driving issues in attendance in every community. So again, there's not one silver bullet, but this is work we're doing across government. Poverty reduction. It's another. I spoke earlier about how we reinstituted the Healthy Child Committee of Cabinet. Something else we did right after we got elected, the Poverty Reduction Committee of Cabinet. And we do work across government to make sure that we are addressing the root causes of poverty. Something that we have in Budget 2026, something that the member has failed to ask about, is our plan on childcare. A fantastic poverty reduction measure that we have in Budget 2026 is free childcare for the families that need it the most. This helps families get to work. This helps provide some stability in the home. These are the kind of things you need to do to support families, to support communities, to support students, and to improve attendance in our province. And before I go on to it further, I want to talk about the nutrition program. I want to apologize to the committee. I've already apologized to the Honourable Chair, who wisely corrected me. I had a bit of an outburst earlier when the member from Lac du Bonny tried to, he started by complimenting the late Nello Altamare, but then he took credit and said that Nello implemented what was his work. That's not the case, and I want to make sure that the record is corrected. These are the words of the PC caucus when the NDP was in opposition and was trying to promote a universal school nutrition program.
Order. Just a reminder to all committee members that when it is not your turn to speak, there are to be no interjections, heckling, or remarks in the background. If anyone has conversations or things to say, you're welcome to step outside the committee room. The Honourable Minister has the floor.
James Teitzma, who sat at the cabinet table with the member from Lac du Bonny, said on February of 2020, "This is a bad idea. They need to eat breakfast in their own home." Brian Pallister in March of 2020 about the Universal Nutrition Program proposed by Nello Altamare, the opposition critic at the time, said simply running around saying meal programs, free meals for everybody at school is somehow a solution is actually going to encourage an unintended consequence. Manitobans are still scratching their head about what the heck Brian Pallister meant when he said that a school nutrition program could have unintended consequences. The consequences of a universal school nutrition program are kids getting fed, kids coming to school, outcomes improving here in Manitoba. That's what we were elected to do. That's what we're going to continue doing.
The member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. At one time, the province of Manitoba contributed about 80% of the funding for schools, and education property taxes was about 20%. And over the last 20 years, and I want to be fair to the minister, she never created this problem, but it's certainly on her doorstep. There has been underfunding, chronic underfunding by 4 provincial governments, both PC and NDP, that the funding didn't keep up with the rate of inflation with education. And education, 80% of the costs are employees, salaries. And everybody in that setting is unionized, and they get a cost of living increase. And it's usually been, over the past 20 years, about 2% a year. So that's the baseline. Then the other expenses for school boards is on top of that. And the province, both governments, have been increasing funding for education at the Consumer Price Index, which is often half what the actual inflationary cost to run a school division is. And you do that over 20 years, and you shift that ratio. And now, Pembina Trails, property taxes pay 65% for schools, and the province of Manitoba contributes 35%. That's the lowest ratio in the province. And many other divisions now pay more for property taxes than the province contributes to schools. There's many, like St. James, there's others that are over 50% now. So the province is actually getting out of the business of paying for education. And it's being put on and transferred to property taxes. And that's a problem for a couple of reasons. Income tax, which is the provincial share, is progressive. That the more money you make, the more you're going to pay. Property tax is flat. And it doesn't take into account your ability to pay. This hurts working families, this hurts seniors, and it is getting worse every year. There are 6 school divisions in the city of Winnipeg, and depending on the region of the city that you live in, you will pay a very, very different amount for your schools. So dealing with Southwest Winnipeg, which I represent, why do the people there pay a larger share for their schools based on education property tax than any other region in Manitoba? And does the minister think that's fair? And the final question on this topic that I'll leave to her. Will the minister commit today to returning the province back to an 80-20 split, meaning the province will pay for schools 80% out of general revenue and only 20% will come from education property tax? And if the minister isn't prepared to make that commitment, please tell us why.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you for the question. I'd like to, I think, maybe just start my time by thanking the member for Fort Garry for his time. I don't know if all members are aware, but, you know, the member for Fort Garry served for many years as a school trustee, and that's really important work. It's tough work, and so I just wanted to commend him for his time as a school trustee with the Winnipeg School Division, I believe, and to all the trustees that are out there. We know that that's incredibly tough work. Our government believes in your work. We support your work. We believe in local voice. We believe in local autonomy. We believe in local priorities, which is why we stood beside families in Fort Garry and families right across Manitoba in opposition to Bill 64, which sought to basically more or less eliminate the role of local trustees, stranglehold them, and really limit that sort of local voice and local autonomy that we believe is so important when you're delivering education. Like the member for Fort Garry, I too am concerned about affordability for my constituents and for all Manitobans. And that's why our Minister of Finance introduced in 2025 the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit, which is not taken into account in some of the numbers that we're hearing reflected here today when people are talking about tax increases. Something that I believe is being left out of those that data is the impact of our Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit, which is a progressive tax credit, which is designed to help the Manitobans that need it the most. Under the previous government, and the member for Fort Garry, you know, it took exception to the way that the previous government doled out their property tax credits. It was not a progressive form of tax credit, and under the previous government, we saw people like Brian Pallister, who lived in a multi-million-dollar home, receiving thousands. I believe it was somewhere in and around the tune of $6,000 or $7,000 a year in a tax credit, a check mailed to the house, the multi-million-dollar house on Wellington Crescent of Brian Pallister. We saw a nearly $1 million check go to a property owner in Winnipeg, a numbered company that doesn't even exist in Manitoba. This is the type of tax credits that you got under the previous PC government, and I know that the member for Garry did not appreciate those measures. And so it's our government, the NDP government, that brought in a homeowners affordability tax credit that's designed to help Manitobans that need it the most. And where Manitobans, those Manitobans who have been so lucky, who have been so fortunate, who have worked so hard to get themselves into a little bit better position in life, that those people can understand the value of investing in education. And the Manitobans that I speak to understand this. We were elected on the Homeowners Affordability Tax Credit. Manitobans understand the value of investing in education. We also inherited a situation in which, and the member from Fort Garry knows this, the previous government completely annihilated school division's ability to raise local taxation when they were in government. They put a limit on the amount of taxes that could be raised. And so school divisions weren't able to invest in their local priorities, their local programs. And so after being starved for 7.5 years, school divisions were not, they were just at the behest of the government. And I'm not sure if this is what the member from Fort Garry is advocating for. I'm not sure if that's what he would like us to do. I'm not sure if the member from Fort Garry, since he's left our caucus and now sits over on the other side of the aisle, perhaps he's become disillusioned and believes in capping the amount of taxes that local school divisions can raise. Again, I'm deeply concerned about affordability, absolutely. But again, I'm not exactly sure where the member for Fort Garry is going. We believe in local choice, we believe in local autonomy, and we believe in investing in education. So after years of being starved and being unable to raise local revenues to support kids and families in their education, I've talked to school boards about this many times. It's like if you've been starved without food for too long, you feel like you need to eat a lot. School divisions are playing catch up, just like our government is, after years of cuts cuts to education under the previous government. We're going to work with school divisions to make sure they're properly funded and providing the services that kids need.
The member for Fort Garry.
I certainly agree with the minister that capping school division is the wrong way to go. And again, and in fairness to her, she didn't create this problem, but it now is her problem by virtue of her position. What has happened during her tenure, which is of concern, and again, not her problem, is the amalgamation of labor contracts in the education field. When you merge upward, you don't merge downward. That has caused a huge jump in expenses for all school boards, and because the province hasn't provided that funding and have underfunded the school boards, they've had no choice but to backfill that funding by raising taxes, and that's why we've seen a spike in the last 3 years in education property taxes. I mean, we know why it's happened, and the minister can fix this. The minister could have prevented all this by actually providing more funding to the school boards so they didn't have to raise taxes. And in fact, even with them raising taxes, and we have Pembina Trails coming out and said, they've had to raise class size numbers. So this is a government that says that they're committed to small class sizes, but then puts in policies that force school boards to raise class sizes. Pembina Trails has also said that they've had to cut programs and services because they don't have the funds to do it. Something that I know this minister would strongly oppose, but they've been given no options from this government. So I'd be very interested to hear what the minister's plan is and how she plans to address this. Again, my solution is return to an 80-20 split where the province pays 80% of schools for every single school division and school board taxes are only 20%. But changing track here, on July 22nd, 2025, I requested a breakdown of chronic absentee numbers by school division from 2023 onward. On September 11th, I received a reply from this department, and I quote, Manitoba Education Early Childhood Learning does not collect chronic absentee data. And so my request for those records was denied. On September 26, I requested all ministerial briefings in relation to chronic absenteeism and data collection from October 2nd, 2023 to the present. On November 10th, the ministry asked for a 15-day extension, which I gladly agreed to. I didn't hear anything from the ministry until February 3rd, 2026, another 4 months later, that obviously contravened the FIPPA Act. And then I received an updated ministerial briefing that was not in proper format, that was undated, and it absolutely didn't address anything that was in my request. And of course, we turned out all this was not true. I was able to obtain a briefing note to the minister dating July 26, 2024, in the proper format, properly dated, and it did reveal chronic absentee numbers, which the province did clearly have in its possession, which sent, and the concern here, is a fraudulent response to me saying that that data didn't exist. Not only did the data exist, not only did a ministerial note exist, the ministry sent fraudulent responses on 2 occasions, one saying they didn't have the data, and one basically burying and not providing the ministerial briefing that actually did have this. These are major, serious violations of Manitoba law. Somebody has broken the law here. There has been no response from the government. There's been no accountability. Nobody has been fired over this. I'm very interested in the minister explaining whether she condones this activity from her ministry, who is responsible for actually sending out fraudulent responses to MLAs and burying these reports, and what is being done investigation-wise and consequence-wise to root out the people who basically deliberately and fraudulently broke Manitoba law.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I appreciate the member for Fort Garry acknowledging at the outset of his question that he too agrees that the reason that school divisions are needing to or have raised property taxes in the last couple of years is because they are backfilling the underfunding that was caused by the previous government. The words used were that it was the backfilling causing the spike, so I'm glad that we agree on that. And the solution, which sounds easy, is just give school divisions more money. And I would submit to the member that that's exactly what we're doing. Again, we cannot fix this problem overnight. You know, we were left in a hole. And so Manitobans elected us on a mandate to reinvest in education after years of cuts, after Bill 64, after the budget cuts, loss of teachers, loss of programs and services. Manitobans elected us on a mandate to restore funding. We've done that every single year to every single school division, but we also have a responsibility to balance the budget and to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. So we can't fix these problems overnight, but what Manitobans can expect, what the member for Fort Garry can expect, is that year after year, our government is going to show up with stable and predictable funding. And it's important that it be stable and predictable. Again, we cannot fix this overnight. We cannot put the rest of our healthcare agenda, our justice agenda, public safety, all of the many other things that Manitobans have elected us to do here. We can't put those things at risk by dumping the hundreds of millions of dollars that would probably be needed to reverse the damage caused by 7.5 years of budget cuts. We can't come up with that money overnight, but we're going to continue working with our school divisions. We've met with the Manitoba School Boards Association very recently on this very issue. And I know that they have a lot of creative solutions. We know that teachers, school superintendents, school budgetary officers all have great ideas in this regard. So we're going to continue working with them on the issue of school funding. On the issue raised by the member regarding his FIPA request for absenteeism data, I guess I would share that as minister, this is not a process that I'm involved in. I would submit to the member, as I said earlier in a previous answer to a question posed by the member for Lac du Bounty, I believe that words matter. I know that he knows this. Something we share in common is that we're both lawyers. We're the two lawyers in this legislative assembly. He obviously practiced much longer than me. I would be happy to concede that. But at the end of the day, lawyers come up with legal opinions, and that's what they are. These are opinions. So I appreciate that the member feels in his interpretation that something was amiss here. He used the word fraud. I take great exception to that, especially when it's leveled at the department. Again, this is not something that I was involved in, these FIPA requests. It's not something that hits the minister's desk. But I have full faith and trust in my department, in my both political staff and my department. I find it offensive and unparliamentary that the word fraud would be used in this chamber to talk about someone in the public service. I think it's reprehensible. I won't stand for it. And again, words matter. So I think that if the member wants to accuse the Department of fraud, perhaps he should go back to his FIPA requests and read them carefully and think about the language that he used and the potential errors he may have made in those FIPA requests. Because words very much do matter. And so while the member might try to put on the record here some sort of erroneous interpretation of the FIPA law that has been defrauded, he couldn't be more incorrect in his interpretation. Again, words matter. He should think about his part in this process and the errors and failures he may have made in submitting his responses. His requests. I will absolutely not be launching an investigation into my department. Again, there are no more reputable people in this province than the people that work in the Department of Education. They do their work diligently and carefully. I do not direct them in how they respond to FIPAs. They are doing their work professionally and according to the law as they understand it and interpret it. So to answer the question directly, no, I will not be investigating or asking anyone to investigate the department. The member would know, and just to be transparent with all Manitobans, because again, we have absolutely nothing to hide, And the member ought to already be aware of this, but in case he is not, I will remind him that he's certainly welcome to complain to the Ombudsman, and they can investigate.
The member for Fort Garry.
The minister's response is troubling for a couple of reasons. First, on the taxation issue, basically the response is steady as she goes, and that not really concerned about a cost of living crisis, that the number one expense for Manitoba families and working families is spike in education property taxes, and whatever relief the government is giving families is swamped by these massive increases to families. And this government is basically satisfied with their approach and think nothing has to change, and that they're going to continue to do these sort of incremental $100 coupons a year, which are being outpaced by far higher tax increases. So basically no help's on the way, Manitoba, for working families and for people who need relief. And it's not going to be fair. The people of Southwest Winnipeg are going to pay more for their schools than any other region in Manitoba, and this minister thinks that's okay. This minister thinks that certain regions of Manitoba have to pay more, and that they don't have a role in making sure our tax system is fair. So that's troubling. What's equally troubling is that a minister is unconcerned that a ministerial statement briefing, which was directly asked for, which was directly on point for the request, was buried by her department, and somebody refused to disclose it. And in that report was the numbers that the department said they didn't have. And the minister says there will be no investigation, nobody did anything wrong. I mean, that's how do you respond to that? That's so otherworldly and out of touch. And this response isn't for me, this is for Manitobans. So the minister isn't being disrespectful to me, she's being disrespectful to the people of Fort Garry and to Manitobans in general. This isn't the minister's information, this isn't the minister's data, it's the people of Manitoba's information. They have a right to know, and they have a right to trust that their government will be open and transparent and honest with them, and when a request is made to release government data, that they don't bury the report, that they don't lie about saying that they don't have it, and that they obstruct the process to prevent Manitobans from actually seeing the data. And what was particularly concerning is when in the media we know from this material that there are 2025 data that this government is in possession of. And this minister has said that she is refusing to disclose the 2025 data on chronic absenteeism. It's even more ridiculous when the minister stands up in the chamber and says, well, you know what, we brought in a nutrition program and that's going to help bring down chronic absenteeism. Fairly, she says it's not a silver bullet. It isn't, and it will have some benefit, I assume. But prove it. You have the data that proves what you're saying, and you won't release it to Manitobans, and that's a concern. Through the chair. So the minister has the 2025 data that can prove that the nutrition program is... Yeah.
We just need to avoid the word you. We need to make sure all comments and questions are going through the chair. We had a little bit of leniency, but we need to redirect here. The member for Fort Garry.
Thank you to the chair, and yeah, I did catch myself. So I apologize. So the minister has this data. This minister claims that the nutrition program is going to help with the absentee problem. So why not release it? Why not release the data and show that the minister was right and the department was right and the education nutrition program is making real gains and we can actually make those links. But when the minister refuses to release that data, again, being disrespectful to Manitoba parents. It's not the minister's schools, it's theirs. They have a right to know what's going on there. They have a right to know how well or not well the school is doing, and this is a metric that very clearly indicates that our schools are struggling. There's absolutely no logical explanation why this minister won't release the data unless, of course, the data doesn't help the minister's argument. and it is embarrassing to the government, and that's why they continue to stonewall and prevent Manitobans from seeing this information. So will the minister release the 2025 chronic absentee data, and if not, why not?
The Honourable Minister.
Like I said at the outset, I mean, I could talk about improving attendance in Manitoba all day. Like, I welcome these questions. You know, the member asks me why I won't release the data. I would ask the member why he needs the data. Like, he talks about, you know, that I should stand up and brag about it. Why does he want the data? To embarrass the government? To embarrass school divisions? To embarrass schools? We believe that data is important. That's why we're collecting it. We know that data is very important in decision-making, unlike the previous government, who closed emergency rooms, who did all this on ideology. Bill 64, ideology. There's no report ever that said Bill 64 was going to be good. There's no report that said, you know, that closing the emergency rooms was going to have no immediate consequences. Data is important in decision-making, and so our department is going to continue collecting that data. Our department has nothing, our government has nothing to be embarrassed about. I'll be the first person to put my hands up and say that some Manitoba students are struggling. That's nothing new here in Manitoba. But I also believe that our government has a plan. It's not just up to the Department of Education. We're working across departments, across portfolios to make the lives of Manitobans better, to make the lives of Manitoba families better, and to make the lives of Manitoba kids better. That's what we're doing. So there's nothing to hide. You know, the member shows his cards here. The reason why the member wants the data is not to support kids in schools. You know, the member talks about this absenteeism data. He's obsessed with the Premier and trying to embarrass our government. That's what he's trying to do, using words fraud. I'm the first person, the Premier's the first person to stand up and say, we have work to do to improve the education system. We inherited a mess. We inherited a mess. But I'm not scared of the data. We're happy to collect the data. We're making our decisions driven by data. But the member opposite, if he is so intent on improving attendance here in Manitoba, I have had no meeting requests from the member. If he wants to get together with his experience that I thanked him for as a school trustee in Winnipeg School Division, let's get together and talk about what that data talks about. And let's talk about what programs and policies will make that better. Let's do it. That's not what the member is here to do. This member, as we all know, the member from Lac du Bonnet knows, that's why the member from Lac du Bonnet, if I were a member of opposition, government opposition, I'd be using every single minute of my time to try to hold the government to account. Just like they do in question period, they run out of steam. They're not here to serve Manitobans. They're here to play politics. That's what the member from Fort Garry is trying to do here today. He wants to try to suggest that we're not being transparent. Here's the minister speaking to Manitobans saying, we need to improve attendance in Manitoba. We absolutely do. The data reveals that there are big disparities between, for example, Indigenous and non-Indigenous students in Manitoba. That's unacceptable. Our government acknowledges that. We will say it to Manitobans, and we're working to do better. That's why we've invested $30 million in a school nutrition program. Not only is it not a silver bullet, but to the member's point, it's also not going to fix things overnight. A universal nutrition program is foundational and fundamental and transformative. But it is not a silver bullet. It is one measure, and it's a new measure. We're still rolling it out, and we know that it's having amazing impacts. The data bears that out. The anecdotes bear that out. So for Manitobans, let's talk about the impacts, the anecdotal impacts that we're hearing. Unless the member doesn't want to hear from school superintendents and teachers on their opinions about the universal nutrition program, you don't take my word for it. The Brandon Superintendent, Matthew Gustafson, said, Brandon School Division Superintendent Matthew Gustafson has said, the program, the Universal Nutrition Program, has a positive impact on students' health, well-being, attendance, and achievement. The division receives regular positive feedback from students, parents, and staff for the nutrition program. A teacher noted that one student's progress has benefited from eating on a regular basis. And that's from a public document that was reported on December 3rd of 2025. That is just one small example of the impact that our universal school nutrition program is having in Brandon School Division. Again, we know there is much more work to do. I'm happy to do it with members of the Legislative Assembly, including the member for Fort Garry, building on his years of experience as a school trustee. Let's work together and fix this problem for kids and for families.
Before recognizing the next speaker, we're on the home stretch here, folks. Let's just keep our remarks only on the record. So when it's not your turn and you don't have the floor, we don't need any interjections, commentary in the background. We can do without all of that. Now we go back after the 30 minutes is up, and the member for Lac du Bonny has the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and I do believe that 30 minutes has been up for a little bit. But that being said, because it's sounding like the minister is not really wanting to fully answer the member from Fort Garry, I will cede the floor for the remainder of today. I have many questions. We've got many days and weeks ahead of ourselves to talk about estimates, as we will, and as a colleague in this Manitoba legislature, I am again ceding the floor to the independent member for Fort Garry till the end of today, and then I will pick up again in estimates our next time when the minister feels that she'll like to attempt to answer some questions. So thanks for that, Honourable Chairperson.
The member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. Honourable Chair, I just want to get back to some of the word salad of the minister's last response. 15,000 chronically absent students a day in Manitoba is embarrassing. And that is a crisis, and the government needs to treat it as a crisis and needs to get serious with it with real money, with real policies. If the minister is sincere, and I think she is, that she actually is open-minded and wants to work with everybody in the chamber about it, I will make a request and we can sit down, and this is obviously dear to my heart, and I'd like to see action on it. I know you're sincere about that. Now, the problem I have is the minister says she has nothing to hide, but now is going to hide the data. I mean, those two statements are contradictory. You can't say, why would you need the data? Well, the obvious reason is again, not the minister's data. It's the people of Manitoba's data, and it's about accountability and transparency. It is a metric that Manitoba parents can see how well or not well the government of the day is addressing an issue that has long-standing policy issues. We know that children who are chronically absent are more often involved in the criminal justice system. We know the PISA scores for chronically absent students are lower, and that they have less likely ability to actually complete school and get a good full-time job, and we'll have higher rates of use of the CFS and healthcare system. If we solve this issue, we actually go many ways to solving a lot of problems in Manitoba. Nella Altamar would always say that public schools are the last common institution where we as a community meet together. And we're excluding 15,000 students from that common institution every day. And that should be alarming to this government. It should be alarming to the minister. And the minister says that, well, they have a plan, but they've never announced the plan. What is the plan? Why hasn't the minister come out with any sort of policy or plans in relation to this? And again, you know, I will assist, and I will humbly and do what I can to help this government achieve this goal. I'm rooting for this government to get this right. I'm rooting for this minister to get this right, because if the minister succeeds, we all do. And I think it should transcend partisanship and personalities, and it needs to get done. And I hope this minister will make this her number one priority. But, you know, time will tell. So one of the issues here is obviously youth crime and chronic absenteeism. The last stats from the Winnipeg Police Service show that with youth crime, shoplifting and break-and-enters through the roof. Double-digit increases in 1 year, 27%. These are crimes that occur during the day. These are crimes that if a young person is in a structured school setting, they're not in the neighborhood breaking into homes. The government recognizes this as a valid issue because in the public safety strategy, they make it very specific and very clear that the Minister of Justice is supposed to work with the Minister of Education to address chronic absenteeism in the process of public safety. Now, in the House a couple of weeks ago, I filed a FIPA showing that the Minister of Education has never met with the Minister of Justice to discuss chronic absenteeism, despite this being a directive in the public safety strategy. And if this government has a plan, if this government believes that this is a priority, why hasn't the minister met with the Justice Minister? Why hasn't there been any meetings when it comes to chronic absenteeism? And I wonder what plan there is.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Thank you to the member for Fort Garry for those words. I really do take you at your word as well, and I agree with you wholehearted that, you know, if we can address this issue of chronic and severe absenteeism in schools, we have addressed many of the issues that plague our government, right? As you've mentioned, certainly public safety being one of them. Healthcare being another really important one. Our government absolutely believes and understands that, and I've said it on the record many times, a good education plan is a healthcare plan. A good education plan is an economic plan. A good education plan is a public safety plan. So I think we agree 100% on that. And that's why, and I mentioned this before, and I mention it again, because I think it is important. The Healthy Child Committee of Cabinet and the Poverty Reduction Committee of Cabinet, two cabinet committees that were struck immediately after we formed government so that we can do that important work that you're talking about, that the member talks about, to address these sort of issues, right? We can't do this work in silos. We can't do this work. It's not up to one party. It's not up to even one legislative assembly. This is an issue that all of society is going to have to tackle, and we all have to come together and work together. And it's a worthy endeavor, because what could be a better investment? What could be better to work towards than supporting our kids? So we agree on that 100%. And, you know, when the member from Fort Garry he posed this question about the formal meetings between the Minister of Justice and I, recognizing that, as he said, you know, improving it, you know, when kids aren't in school, it's a lot more likely that they're out in the community, you know, causing trouble, sometimes even, unfortunately, committing some property crimes. So we acknowledge that. And, you know, while the FIPPA result may have come back with no sort of formal meetings between the Minister of Justice and I can tell you that certainly in our work through the Healthy Child Committee of Cabinet, through the Poverty Reduction Committee of Cabinet, and just through, you know, the day that the member asked the question, the Minister and I sort of jokingly gave each other a high five and said, we don't need to have meetings, we're best friends. And while I admit that perhaps that was maybe a sort of a flippant response at the time, question period can be, you know, a bit dramatic and flippant. That's maybe the kindest way to describe question period. But it really was sort of sincere, you know what I mean? We do really sincerely mean. The Minister of Justice happens to also be the member for Concordia. We are neighbor constituents. We are almost lifelong friends. And so, you know, Manitobans can rest assured that the Minister of Justice and myself work together very closely, as we do with all members of our caucus. Work very well together. One of the things that the Minister of Justice and I worked on that really speaks to what the member for Fort Garry is talking about is the Youth Summit, which we had, I believe, in February. The very first of its kind youth summit here in Manitoba, and it was co-delivered by the Department of Justice and the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning, hosted by our MLA for Radisson, who herself is a young person, or relatively speaking anyways. And that summit, all jokes aside, was an incredible opportunity to bring Manitobans together to talk about what youth are thinking about. And so a big part of that youth summit was to talk about public safety, to talk about how kids are feeling safe. What do you see in your community that makes you feel safe? What do you see in your community that makes you feel unsafe? And how can we as government do better to create feelings of safety within young people? And so we had so much great feedback that day. Certainly, you know, education was a big part of the conversation. And we heard a lot of great things that day. One thing that I reflect about a lot that we heard at the Youth Summit that day is some of the investments that our Justice Minister is making in increasing not just supports for municipalities for local police services, but also the legislative and regulatory work that we've done to create not only First Nation safety officers, but also community safety officers. And so I know that some of that legislative and regulatory work and also some of the increase in funding has led to the City of Winnipeg creating community safety officers that now work on Winnipeg Transit. And we heard from students that day.
The hour being 12:30 p.m., committee rise.